You know, I just can't believe we're living in these times. I mean, being assailed as I have been in the last 72 hours by the very people that have gotten everything wrong for an entire year plus, that there is no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. Yeah, it's interesting to me as a phenomenon that the media is just a bunch of sheep. They're overpaid. They live in a bubble. And they live in this little echo chamber, and they just regurgitate back to each other what they say, and they try to outdo themselves. If one person in the mainstream media goes, Trump is demented, the next one will say, no, you're wrong. He's really, 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 really demented. That's what you meant to say. And it goes on from there. But we do have evidence now of collusion. We have two memos. The memo that came out in the Senate committee of Charles Grassley yesterday, the Judiciary Committee there, where it literally says that Christopher Steele gathered as much of his information or much of it from Russian government sources inside of Russia. Let me repeat. Steele gathered much of his information from Russian government sources inside of Russia. And by the way, Steele is not an American citizen. I thought that was something that would be shocking to some people and something that we heard the last year that people didn't like. And in the House Intelligence Committee report, what did we find out? That neither in the initial application, well, remember, the first application to spy on the Trump campaign was denied. And then remember, it's in the Nunes memo, the House Intelligence Committee memo, that the Deputy Director, Andrew McCabe, testified before the committee that no surveillance warrant would have been sought from FISA without the Steele dossier information. And then we find out that as part of the application process, neither the initial application on the second go around in October 2016 or any of the three renewals, they did never at any point reference the role that the DNC, the Clinton campaign, and the party and the campaign apparatus in funding Steele's efforts. Clinton campaign and the DNC that Hillary was controlling, according to Donna Brazil, funneled all of this money to this law firm, Perkins Coie. Remember, Fusion GPS. Okay, they're getting the money from Perkins Coie, not directly from the Clinton campaign, not directly from the DNC, but that's where the money's coming from. Then they hire Christopher Steele, and now we learn from the Senate memo that Christopher Steele is getting his information from Russian government sources inside of Russia. And then they not only use this to lie to the American people and manipulate the American people with phony Russian salacious information to win an election by lying about their opponent, Donald Trump. Then they take it a step further, and they use that Hillary Clinton bought and paid for dossier to get a FISA warrant, and they're not telling the FISA court that it was Hillary Clinton and the DNC that bought and paid for the thing. Imagine if this was Donald Trump. And then being even more deceptive, Christopher Steele leaks to Michael Isikoff. He writes an article based on Christopher Steele's information, and that is handed in as though it is some type of corroborating evidence when the source was identical. Well, that's fairly manipulative. And one has to wonder how a FISA court judge would feel if he found out that the little footnote that said, oh, it might be a little politically tainted, turns out to be it was the opposition party candidate, Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC paying for all of this. And the FBI knew it and the DOJ knew it. And they never told the FISA court judge. Here to weigh in on all of this. And then the added information is now we discovered yesterday that, in fact, Clinton associates were feeding some of this false information to Christopher Steele also, like Sid Blumenthal and this guy, Jonathan Winter. I don't think I could even make up a novel this twisted and sick and despicable. This still is the United States of America. And that Christopher Steele was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected, was passionate about him not being president. And then you got the Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr. Oh, his wife is building the dossier. I guess you can argue she's being paid by Clinton and the DNC. And that he's out there with Rosenstein and others. He's renewing the FISA warrant every 90 days. You can't make this stuff up. Newt Gingrich is here to help us sort it out. Former Speaker of the House. How are you?
I'm doing well, but I think you've done a pretty good job. The fact is that all of this, by any normal standard, would just be unbelievable. I mean,
what if it was Donald Trump? Just reverse the names. Donald Trump did all this.
Well, then it'd be open shut. I mean, obviously at that point you'd have to say He has to leave the presidency. He has to resign. He has to go home. We probably ought to have John Kerry as the interim president to clean up the tainted office. I mean, look, this is simply unimaginable. Here you have the Clinton campaign paying a British former secret agent who hates Trump to write a fantasy that makes him feel good, taking that fantasy to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which without, and I saw a very, very interesting analysis today, which points out that he apparently, the FBI never tried to truly validate what he was saying. The FBI then takes this totally tainted fantasy, goes to a FISA court judge and says, look, this is clearly proof that we need to have an ability to wiretap into the Trump team. The judge says, well, I'm not quite sure. And they say, well, here, we have some extra proof, and the extra proof is an article, which is an interview with the very same British agent. I mean, this is like, you can't make this up.
We've spent an entire year.
First of all,
Go ahead. Yeah, all weekend long, Mr. Speaker, I've been under fire. Oh, the memo didn't prove anything. The memo showed that they lied to a FISA court. The memo showed that they were purposely deceptive to a FISA court. And we know they knew that this was Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dossier. They never told the court.
If this had happened to a liberal Democrat, every American civil liberties union lawyer in the country would be going crazy. The New York Times would be editorializing every day. The Washington Post would be editorializing every day. We'd be getting warnings about a police state. We'd be told, if the federal government can start eavesdropping on American citizens based on false information from a politically paid-for document, all of us are at risk. It just tells you how deeply the country is divided, that as long as the target is Donald J. Trump, anything goes. They don't care. I mean, they just simply refuse to engage on whether or not this is a question which I think virtually every liberal I can remember for at least 40 years has worried about this precise case. And now that we have the case, they can't worry about it because it involves the wrong guy.
Let me ask you for a historical comparison, because I've been getting beat up over the fact that I said this makes Watergate look like stealing a Snickers bar from a drugstore. And by that, Watergate was a third-rate burglary, okay, to get op research from an opponent's, I guess, headquarters, and then the cover-up that ensued. This, to me, is... go ahead.
No, I know. I mean, I'm going to say, having lived through that and having campaigned, my very first campaign was during 1974. Yeah. And so I was right in the middle of the whole Watergate problem. And of course, I'd been Nixon's chairman for the 6th District of Georgia in 1972. So, I mean, I sort of was living this stuff close up. There's no question that there were things that were done in Watergate that were totally wrong, and that the president and the attorney general and other key people did things that were wrong. But here you have two things that are very different. One, which is similar, is I have no doubt personally that President Obama knew what was going on. The Attorney General knew what was going on. The fix was in. They were going to protect Hillary Clinton no matter what, and that the head of the FBI was part of the same problem, which is why Comey is as guilty as all the other people. But there's a second thing going on here that was the opposite of Watergate. One of the characteristics of Watergate was that when they came down to it, civil servants actually obeyed the law and refused to do what the president told them to do. They said, no, that's illegal. I'm not going to do it. What you have here is just the opposite. Here you have some of the key players are career civil servants. They are the deep state. They're everything people talk about. And I think there's no question that you had senior people at the FBI and some people in the Justice Department who were colluding first to protect Hillary Clinton and second to set up the destruction of Donald Trump. And that's what makes this frightening. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, we got some politician who's bad. We have 6 or 8 people at the White House who've done really bad things. Let's clean it out. And the truth is, at the end of Watergate, everybody who was tainted was gone. This is much, much different. This is the core of the bureaucracy itself. And the core of the bureaucracy itself here decided that it was its job to protect Hillary Clinton and it was its job to destroy Donald Trump. And that, when you start thinking about the people they were going to destroy on the way through, there are innocent people being run over by the power of the government in a way that is, I think, very, very chilling.
Doesn't it sound to you like laws were broken here? Look, isn't it bad enough every election season? Okay, every election season there are lies the politicians tell, but in this election season, Hillary Clinton is buying, again, I'll go back to the Senate and Charles Grassley's committee released yesterday, but literally she paid for Mr. Steele gathering his information from Russian government sources inside of Russia. So that's what she wanted to influence the American people with. And then it was used as at least in part of a measure. They never told the FISA court judge that she bought and paid for this phony information, while the FISA court judge is making a determination to spy on an American citizen, which, you know, we put a great priority in people's right to privacy and our Fourth Amendment constitutional rights, sir.
Well, look, there's an old rule called follow the money. So what I'd like to know is, it's not just Hillary Clinton. Who in the Clinton campaign authorized paying for it? Who actually contacted Steele to get it done?
Well,
who knew this was going on?
And by the way, when the FISA warrants came due, did Barack Obama know? Isn't that a good question?
I have no doubt. If you look at the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, meeting with Bill Clinton at a private airplane in a totally inappropriate meeting, you look at the notion, you look at some of the text messages that Strzok is sending to his girlfriend, where he is saying, well, Loretta Lynch can do all this because, after all, she knows the fix is in. She knows Hillary's going to be exonerated. I mean, you read this stuff, if you put the dots together, there is zero doubt in my mind as a historian that when this thing all comes out in the open,
it's obstruction of justice.
Obama will be involved. Obama will be involved. The Attorney General will be involved. And senior people in the FBI will be involved. And all of them will, in fact, have been tainted by having broken the law.
We'll take a break. We'll come back more with Newt Gingrich. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. This is just breaking from the Daily Mail. Russian pranksters spoof Adam Schiff by telling Democrat that Putin has naked blackmail pictures of Trump, and he gets his staff to try and collect classified materials for the FBI. And we actually have the email exchange that goes back and forth. Sergey, I understand Mr. Schiff had a productive call with Mr. Probably, and that he would like to make some materials available to Mr. Schiff through your embassy. Please let us know how best to arrange pickup. We've got the phone call.
Okay, and so Buseva met with Trump in New York at some point after the 2013 Miss Universe
yes,
pageant.
Absolutely, and she got compromising materials on Trump after their short relations.
Okay, and what's the nature of the compromise?
Well, there were pictures of naked Trump.
Okay, and so Putin was made aware of the availability of the compromising material?
Yes, of course, Buseva shared those materials with Sobchak, and Sobchak shares those materials with Putin because she's a goddaughter of Putin, and Putin decided to press on Trump.
And the materials that you can provide to the committee or to the FBI, would they corroborate this allegation?
Sure, of course. When they were in Ukraine, we got their conversation by the phone where they discussed those compromising materials. We are ready to provide it to FBI.
All right, I just got to give. So now, Mr. Speaker, I got to ask you. So you hear this? Oh, wait a minute. You mean they want information from a foreign entity about an opposition party candidate? I thought that was horrible.
Listen, I think one of the most amazing things historians will study for decades is you had the Democrats. Remember, this whole thing in a way starts on election night when the shock of knowing at 8 p.m. that Hillary Clinton's going to win and learning by 10 p.m. that Donald Trump has won. The shock is so enormous that nobody in the Clinton campaign has the guts to go and say there, you know, you lost.
We're going to see you tonight on Hannity. We'll have a lot more. That tape cracks me up.